A one and a two and a chick-a-boom a chick.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Remodelers on the Rise. I have a special guest today. Usually I just have guests, but today I have a special guest, Dave Yoho. And Dave and I have just kind of gotten to know each other over the last 13 minutes, but I have followed and seen Dave and his sharp tie and his suit and his team's sharp dress for years. You may recognize him if you get emails from some of the trade magazines and just are in the industry. Dave is a bit of a pillar in the industry. He's been around for a number of years, does great work, and it's a privilege to have him on the show today. Dave, welcome.
Well, it's nice to be here, and flattery will get you everywhere.
Okay, excellent. He also said that if I say, he said, look, Kyle, this is your show. If you want me to sing, if you want me to do this, you just give me the word. So we'll see where this goes. I'll give a little bit of a bio and then have a couple questions. And then we're going to get into the main topic that we want to touch on today, which is how do we combat an abundance of backlog of work? The economy right now, the number of leads that remodelers are generating, the signed contracts are pretty solid when we look kind of across the fruited plains, which is also increasing our cycle time, which is increasing the attention of, man, it is hard to find good help out there. So we're going to get into that as being the main topic, but just a little bio. Dave founded a roofing company at the age of 28. Eventually operated that with 22 branches in 13 states. In the early 1970s, it had a volume of $60 million, which is a lot of money back in the 70s, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a lot of money today. He subsequently founded in 1962 Dave Yoho Associates. They're a full-service consulting firm. They sell educational video and audio, and they cater towards the home improvement, remodeling, and home services industry. Professional speaker, and just an all-around solid guy. Now, Brad's your son, right?
Yeah, Brad's my youngest son. That's
okay.
He's our director of marketing.
Director of marketing. And Brad reached out to me and said, hey, I was seeing your podcast, and in order to get my attention, he said, well, let me tell you about Dave Yoho. He said, one thing, just some interesting tidbits about this man's life. He falsified his birth certificate to fight in World War II. That got my attention. He worked his way up the ranks until he ran Surface Shield, that $60 million company, founded Associates in 1962, recognized as one of the most influential motivational speakers in history, was inducted into the National Speaker Association Hall of Fame. Is that one of the trophies behind you?
No, in all that's on the other side of the room. No,
okay.
That's an interesting other side of my history. Yeah.
What an honor. What an honor. And then he's a tireless contributor to the Merchant Marines and just really into supporting our veterans and that side of things. Dave, I'd love to hear just a little bit about this falsified birth certificate.
All right.
There's a story there.
It's not the smartest thing I did, but along came World War II. In 1941, I was 13 years of age. By the time I was 15 years of age, my school friends and my neighborhood friends, guys I grew up with, and I grew up in the inner city, they were all, when the bomb dropped on Pearl Harbor, everybody wanted to volunteer. The United States had a population of 130 million people. Think about that. We put 16 million in uniform and everybody wanted to go. My friends were going, I wanted to go. So I falsified my birth certificate, first applied in the US Navy. They found out about it and they came with a police car to notify my parents who didn't know. And I told my parents I wanted to do the right thing. And if I couldn't do what I wanted to do, I'd probably run away from home.
Wow.
I didn't say it that way because they would have probably said, go ahead. But I did. I went in the service. I did my basic training in Sheepshead Bay, New York for the U.S. Maritime Service. You enlist in the U.S. Maritime Service. There were only 250,000 of us, and we are today the smallest. We had the highest percentage of mortality rates because we were trained, and along with Navy Armed Guard, we were put on merchant ships. And there were only 250,000 of us then there may be 1,500, 1,700 left today.
Wow.
That's where that came. So, hey,
Amazing.
I came home. And when I got my education, I went to night school. I thought, here I am with a college education. Everybody will want to hire me. Well, there were no jobs because we had a recession, all the GIs returning. And so I took the first job I was offered. And it was a company that was eventually acquired by Reynolds Metals, who were well known in making Reynolds wrap, but they also had a building products division. And what the company I worked for, the company I worked for had 61 offices in the United States.
Wow.
And they had their own plant. They manufactured roofing and siding materials, sold them through distribution, and had a division which sold them directly to homeowners. That's where I cut my teeth. Did I like it? No. Was I embarrassed by it? No, because I needed enough money to live. My parents were not in a position to keep me at home without. So, and whatever it might be, that's what drove me to get in this business.
Awesome.
If I'd have gotten a better deal at the time, I'd have taken it. But as long as I was there, what I learned in life early, when you're doing something, don't waste time. Get as good of it as you can. And I was the, of 61 offices, I became the number 2 office as a manager when I rose to manager within 2 years. And I figured I got my hands on something here. And I also knew I wasn't going to go up the ladder to become the president of that company. So I left. And at the time I left, I was, I think, 27 years of age. And with this background and experience, then I started my own company. It was called Surface Shield. Eventually ended up with offices, as you have mentioned. We had 22 offices in 13 states. And as such, I just started making speeches in the building material industry. And I'm like, the private list of Dave Yoho I was the popular girl in school who went to all the dances. So I was on everyone's dance card. That's where I started my reputation. And I never forgot, this is a great industry, big today, 325 billion, but it's made up of fractious things, small businesses, diversified, going in all different directions, and they are entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And that is both good and bad. Entrepreneurial, based with ingenuity, based with inspiration, based often with good levels of deportment. It may not seem that way to others at times, but the people who make it in the business work hard.
Yeah.
But they're not business people until they learn that they have to have a business model. And that changes everything. So I thank God for my background and my experience. And I came from the inner city. Parents never owned a home or a car. And yet before the age of 31, I was financially independent in this business.
Amazing. Yeah, the industry, and it's interesting that we both, I don't have any skills at swinging the hammer either. Certainly not as interesting of a story or as ambitious of a story as you are, but that part that you mentioned of it is made up, this industry, the remodeling industry, the home improvement industry is made up of so many small businesses. But the thing I love about it, it's full of good people. Yes, there's a bunch of schmoes out there who also give our industry a bad name, but to be a good remodeler, you've got to be a decent, good, solid person. You know, it's a hard business. It is a hard business to be going into people's homes and to be managing the marketing, the sales, and the production and the permitting. There's so many different things and complexities about the business. But that's what I love, and you were kind of hinting at. It's just full of good entrepreneurial people.
May I comment also? The interesting thing is, what skills do they look for? So you'll have a lot of people on your call today, I'm sure, who hear this eventually, who don't like the title sales or even sophisticated marketing. And it isn't necessary that you do all the practices that salespeople do. It is necessary that you understand the fundamentals of buyer versus sellers. And there are regulations and rules, but there are also academics of what works between buyers and sellers. And if you're not willing to learn those things, see, this awful thing that happened to us and started in March of this year came after everybody in 2000. If you didn't make money in 2019 or the first 2 months of this year, if you weren't doing good business, you're probably in the wrong business. But some of the things that you're going to talk about today happened before that period of time. And no one said you have to have a business plan and you have to have a model, two different things. What is the model for running your business? What will you sell? What don't you sell? And when you get it, what will be your cycle time?
Mm.
And cycle time usually happens in a small business as long as it takes to get the job done, which is sometimes not efficient. And the gentleman or lady, because there are a lot of ladies in the business today too, or the combination of both, do not have the educational background, nor do they have a source to get the data that they need most of the time. And God bless the trade magazines and the trade shows and whatnot. And I love them, and I participate, and I write articles for them, and I make speeches for them. But most of the people that they bring on either talk about something they did in their way in a limited market, or you get these broad references to what the real estate market and what home building market has done, and you get statistical data. And then I want them, whoever they are, putting these things up, to recognize in Des Moines, Iowa, there's a little guy, and I say little, I'm not talking about stature, a small business today, on the phone and say, yes, but I have cash flow problems today. What caused it? I have cycle time problems. I can't hire enough installers to do this work. And the thing that went wrong, unfortunately, he didn't have a foundation for what he wanted to do. So we came along years ago and set up models for all the things that are done out there. Everything that you do, there's a
Step
model
by step.
for. Yeah. Well, the step selling would be, we introduced that in 1962 in New York City to 1,500 people in the home improvement. Half of them were manufacturers and half of them were retailers. But we introduced it, step selling. Pretty fundamental thing. The idea, the brain can only deal with one idea at a time. And so when people go in without sales modified skills, they go in to the premise of someone's home who is giving them their time. Customer satisfaction is important, even if you don't sell these people, to get at the basis of their real needs and to get at the foundation of their beliefs and to appeal to their buying motives, which is not done if you simply go in and think, I've made a proposal, here, read this proposal, and I'm only going to charge you $89,462.45, and I can get it financed for you. No, that's not it. And there is a step to getting there. And strategically enough, the small steps, the interim steps, the beginning steps are never even spoken about or understood. So I'm not bemoaning this. I'm saying it's a tragedy for this business. We grew to $325 billion, and for a lot of reasons. Good marketing out there. I do tell you, we represent Renewal by Andersen, but we don't only represent them. We represent all the people who sell in the various markets in the United States, some of which are very small businesses. And we have to be able to talk to them about the way they have to talk to the people who call them. And it starts out, the phone is answered incorrectly. Hi, XYZ Remodeling. No. Everybody says that. Some say, if you're interested in an estimate, press 1. If you're scheduling an appointment, press 2. No. When that person asks you, I'll make it as simple as possible, Kyle.
Okay.
Thank you for calling XYZ Remodeling. How may I direct your call today? See, thanking people is an affirmation that they're doing something that they chose to do with their time. People say, yeah, that's picky. You don't have to do that where we're. We're in rural community. People like to talk. No. We're not talking about that. We're talking about inner purpose. So I took what I knew about psychology, and I took what I knew from studying sales methodology from many, many different kinds of companies, many not in this industry, and extrapolated from it systems and methods that go by steps. Even when you approach the house for the first time, how you go about it. And when you're going there for the first time, you should have that person's name prominent in your mind. If the name was complicated, like Shilmalski, then you better do it phonetically. And when you knock on the door, and if you're over 6 foot tall, you take 2 steps back. If you're under 6 foot tall, you take at least 1 step back, so you don't represent a threat. That's
all of it matters. You know, one of the things, Dave, that I say a lot of times is, running a successful remodeling business is not about doing one thing right. There's no silver bullet out there.
Right.
It's a combination of a lot of little things. And so much of what you're hinting at there is it's all about these little things. It's all about having the steps. It's all about thinking through each part and facet of the process and honing it and practicing it, so, and making it your own, making it authentic to you, but to be thoughtful about every interaction that a client has with us. Marketing, selling, I like to say, is about getting someone who has a need to know, like, and trust you. And so many of the little things that you're talking about there plays into that. So I think there was some good nuggets of wisdom in there. We're going a little bit on the sales process, but we're going to pivot a little to the main topic today, which is how to combat an abundance of backlog and increased cycle time. So my first question around that topic is, how did abundant backlog, in your eyes, become such a challenging industry issue? And what steps can companies take to combat it?
Okay. Now, that could take me 4 hours, but I just want to put a capstone on what you said about what we discussed
Yes,
earlier.
please.
When I see statistical data on why this occurs, how this occurs, and fundamental issues, and what we're doing at IBM or what we're doing at National Cash Register, or whatever these things are that people are talking about, I want to get back to fundamentals. What we sell, and I use the word sell, what we market to the public is an unfinished product. You go to buy a car, a rug, a suit, a tie, anything, you see a finished product. Our job is to be able to get in to see people and be demonstrable in whatever else aids we need, and let them experience what this is going to look like, how they will feel in that environment, and how they feel about where they are now. So I just want to put a capstone on that, because there's no magic to it. It's a science. Now, getting back to this thing about backlog, here's the tragic enema for this, and I'm mentioning this.
Okay.
And I use the word enema. You got to get this out of your system. You didn't have a fundamental plan if you're experiencing overt backlog. You did not have a fundamental plan for growth. Now, if you're a very small business, you're doing under $1 million, we'll say, or small to me could be under 2-3 million. You didn't plan for this. You have a source of labor, whether they work for you directly and you have project managers, or whether there's some of them that have independent contractor status. You are nonetheless managing people and all the foibles of people. The people function in a job role today have a capacity maybe for this much work. Now, when you get more work, they don't have the capacity to give you 20, 25% more.
Yeah.
They see limitations in what they're doing, and they may want to do no more. And so what happens, the minute you get material backup, jobs backed up, and you are getting this backlog of business, first thing is, well, you got to pay better rates. Well, that's an ongoing accident about to happen. You raise your rate, your competitor raise the rates, he raise the rates, and that's where it's going. And I'm not saying that installation people do not have the right to take advantage of this situation. But if you didn't have a plan in your business, you are, my opinion is one of the things that is not being assessed in what people talk about, the danger in what has happened in your business. Let's say you had anywhere from a 5 to 10 week cycle time. From the time you took the job, you got the paperwork done, until the time you finish and collect your money. And let's just say again, you had a 5 to 10 week cycle time. Mm-hmm. Now you got more leads in. Why? Because there were more people at home than ever before. Whatever you did to draft their attention, whatever they did, if they were an old customer, they're being referred, whatever it is, there are more of them at home now. Some of them would be willing to see you, bring you into their home. Now you're going to sell more business than you sold before. Mm-hmm. And if you only have this much of a labor pool and you sell more than you sold the month before or the same last year, then your backlog increases. And before I talk about overt solutions, let me tell you the danger in that. That's your money in the backlog. If you have any kind of a marketing plan, whether you have a showroom or you used to go to home shows or you have people that you mail out to, whatever that is, you have a marketing and a sales cost, and you extend that before you get the job. And that money is tied up in your backlog. Now, if you're fortunate to have grown your business to 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 project managers or more, better sales force. When that job is approved, you also advance it. Most of you advance to that individual a portion of what they'll make at the end. And if you start to look at that, if you had a $500,000 backlog normally, so if you did that 12 months a year, you're doing $6 million. And all of a sudden you got $750,000 in a backlog. And the minute you do that for 2 months, you got another $500,000 in backlog. So you went from getting 500 to 750, and all of a sudden you got $1 million in backlog. And you got marketing costs, even if they're low, 3, 4, 5%. Some of the people who do big advertising, some of your remodelers are on radio, television, or in any kind of broadcast method, or they're going online, SEA, whatever that might be. Now suddenly all that cost is being added to that backlog, and that's your money. And whatever that backlog is, let's say your project managers, in the sense of easy arithmetic, you pay him 10%. If the job comes out right and all, he's getting 7, 8, 9, 10%. Whatever that is, you may advance him half of that. You put the two of them together, you got $1 million worth of business out there. You may have $150,000 to $200,000 of your own money in there, and you don't have a source of capital. Now, don't look at this and say, oh, whoa, it's me. How do I get this down? So when we work with clients, and we work with some who are pretty good size, the specialty projects, I had one guy in the window business, cycle time was 5 weeks. His cycle time now is over 14 weeks. And these are people who do $70 million a year. So that's, you're talking about $6 million a month. And the minute you start to get a backlog here, you're getting a backlog of anywhere from $12 million.
Yeah.
So it could be $12,000 to $120,000. Whatever it is, just do the arithmetic. That's your money. And you're not going to cut it down by simply talking about it. So you have to set a goal. Half of it is up here, half. 50% is your attitude. If something coming along, I'm going to lick it. If you let whatever has happened to you in the past or what's happening now confuse you, you're not going to do what I'm going to suggest anyhow. I'm going to suggest you need a program to whittle it down a day at a time. A day at a time, you whittle it down. And you have to set a goal. What is your cycle time going to be? Because you don't have a cycle time, that's the problem. And from what your cycle time is as a goal and your cycle time is actually, work at bringing it back.
Tell me a little bit more. Part of the problem that you have is that you don't have a cycle time. You don't have a goal. So we don't have anything we're shooting for.
No, that's true. But listen, I can't cure what you went through or the wrong information you take. I take umbrage with people giving statistical data to people like listening today when they don't know a darn thing about what it is. They don't know what permitting is today. They have no idea the complications of permitting. Permitting isn't only getting $450 for a permit, it's going down to get the permit. Somebody has to be in there to get the permit. They say, oh, well, I have the permit covered in my pricing. No, you don't. You think you do. If your permit is averaging $500 and you put $500 in there, you may have to send someone down to get 3 permits, and it may take them better part of a day to get them. If you sell in one county, you're essentially in one county, you go to the next county, they got different rules.
Sure. Takes more time.
They have different costs. So what I'm suggesting, you have to set up a formula. Listen, I'm a study in human behavior. I know this. If you're 50 pounds overweight, you can go on diets for the rest of your life, and it ain't going to take the weight. It will not take the weight off. I say to audiences, hey, how many of you ever been on a diet? And hands go up. Yeah. I say that's a lie. You haven't been on a diet. You've been on a series of diets. You're carrying 50 pounds you don't need. And what you would like to do is wave the magic wand because your niece is getting married next week and you're going to be in a tuxedo and they don't have your size. It ain't going to go away. That's a habit that starts right here. So think about it first. Lay out what is your cycle time right now? Forget about what you would have liked it to have been. So I say to the guy who went from 5-week cycle times up to 12, 14, 16 weeks. We have a client in California solely in the roofing business, and a nice 3rd-generation company. They are now telling people that they sell to that they can't get installed until about February or March of next year.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good business. And if you're not doing anything about it and you're not retaining that, and you're going to lose some of that business. If you have a bigger backlog, unless you have a plan, you're going to lose some of that business. Yeah. Now, I feel I just jumped off my soapbox, so I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. So you started to talk about a little bit of how to combat that. So I want to hear maybe a few more thoughts on how do we combat that. One thing I was hearing is, what gets measured gets improved. Let's make sure we're measuring this. Let's make sure we have goal. It's interesting, and I'm sure you see this too. The longer I do this, the longer I do business coaching, the more I realize several things you've already mentioned. Guys and gals, it's about the fundamentals. Guys, it's about setting goals. Hey, half of this is your head. Half of this is just mental head trash you have that you need to get past. So much of it is the basic blocking and tackling. And that should be encouraging to people. So as far as maybe a little bit more on how to combat this topic, and then I want to get your thoughts on, boy, if we have a shortage of quality team members, quality installers, how do we combat that? So,
okay. But I want to get back to something.
Yes.
See what you just said. Now, again, I'm going to refer to this. When you introduced me, we had never met before. We're preaching the same sermon.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to get a duet instead of individual singers. We're singing the same lyrics to you.
Yeah.
You have to start out with a plan.
Hey, Dave, can you sing the harmony line? I can sing the main line, the main melody, but I'm not that good at the harmony. My wife is a music teacher and a talented musician. She can sing harmony. So if we're going to do this duet thing you're talking about, I need you to sing harmony.
If you're going to become a smart aleck, I charge twice as much when I deal with smart alecks. So
yes, sir.
If anybody ever calls me and says, Kyle, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
When I charge them, no, here, and I thank you for saying that. But what I'm saying, we're talking about the same thing.
Yes.
So you have to right now, if you want to do this, go back and establish what your cycle time is. Now, if you're saying, I'd like to cut it in half, whatever that is, I want you to think that that's not going to happen immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So if you went, let's say you have 4 crews that you use. When I say crew, when you're doing general remodeling, you may have 13 different trades you're working with on a regular basis and some subs that go with that.
Sure.
Because this is such a fragmented industry, we work in different ways. And if you simply said, here, you go to your subs and you say, here, I have a problem and I need your help. Now, hear those words. That's from psycho-linguistic programming. Neuro-linguistic programming. I have a problem. I need your help. And they usually say, what is it? I need you to give me 115% of the time you're giving me now. What is that all about? I have a backlog. I'm going to get dissatisfied customers. I'm going to get these people that are going to cancel. And if I have financing for them, if it goes over 90 days, the usual approval of financing may not work.
Sure.
Here's where I need your help. Right now, you give me 100% of your time. I need you to every day, when instead of working your crews at 8 hours, I need that extra hour every day. Now, what do you give them? If you simply raise their rates, it's not going to work. You could give them something called an annual contingent bonus. That's a bonus based on this extra time. You're paying them for the extra time, but a bonus on the extra time, contingent upon their remaining as a sub for you. And you can give them credits for all things if you want them to bring somebody else in or expand their crews, however it is. Now, I'm giving you a basic. I can't tell whether to say, well, the electrician, in over 40 hours, they have to pay over. No, that's not always the truth. You have to do it if you're paying on a 40-hour week. But in some cases, that may not be true of your organization. But that's one way to start. The contingent bonus, and the minute I say it, the guy will say, well, that sounds good. I'll go to my accountant. And your accountant will say, you can't do that. You can, as long as I give you, let's say for the year 2020, I had established a bonus. And at the end of the year, I look at that bonus and it's $6,400. And how does he get it? Well, he doesn't get it. And the contingent agreement is he stays in your employ, continues to work for you, and puts in no less hours in than he did this year. And then next year, let's say in the 1st of March, 10 months, and that's $6,400. He gets $640 a month, as long as he's with you. Now, keep in mind, you're devoting another $6,400, and it only works if you have a plan. And hear me out, guys. 90% of the things I'm going to tell you today, you're going to say, you know what? That would probably work where you are, Dave, with your fancy tie and your fancy English. It wouldn't work in our market. Don't bet on it, pal. We serve people in this. We have people who come to us who just want a company presentation. We do it with them virally. Or how to set the leads better. We do it virally. We don't even come in to see them. We live in that world today, and we live in a world of change. And if you're not willing to modify it, hey, I'm not going to fight you. I give you this advice based on the fact that if you do nothing, it's going to get worse. And incidentally, Kyle, I don't want to muddy the water here today. What you're seeing right now is only the tip of the iceberg. When people go back to work, whenever that is in some markets, whenever the people are going back to work, you're going to find fewer people at home, more difficulty getting appointments, and more difficult getting enough time to give a strategic presentation to these people within certain time parameters. Now, incidentally, they can go online. If they go online or go on YouTube, it's Dave Yoho online. You'll see hundreds of things that we give you for free, no cost at all. But there are ways to do all these things that fit that. What else can I give you, Kyle? Tell me how you would like to extend it, or what you would like to ask them.
Yeah. So I liked that. I liked a lot of that fundamental. I liked, before we started kind of doing the recording, you mentioned this psychology degree that you had, and I'm hearing how you've weaved that. I think we undervalue and underappreciate getting, and part of this is I'm kind of scratching the surface on it. I'm understanding the power of it a little bit more. But when you are selling and working with clients, when you are managing a team, so much, if you can improve your understanding of the human mind and how to motivate and how to inspire and how to convince and all of those things, there's great value in doing that. And it's a skill that I do believe that we can learn about and then we can improve. I'd be curious just maybe your thoughts on that, because it seems that that's something that you've studied, that you're skilled at, and that I think probably colors a lot of the teaching that you do.
Yeah, well, I want to correct one thing. I do not have a degree. I am not degreed.
Okay.
I made a study of human behavior for specific purposes to create methods, we call it methodology, by which anyone running the simplest business will answer the phone differently, will approach the different customer in a different way. And whatever you're trying to sell them, to understand, for the most part, it's an unfinished product. And you have got to get them to visualize. And that can be done with a computer today. And it can be done, you can even do it in a computer when you set up the appointment with the people. And it's called selling the value of the visit. So the concept of selling, whenever an interaction between two or more people come together, whenever an action that brings two or more people together with the purpose of exchanging ideas or things, goods, and if they're tangible or intangible, we want to exchange them for money. Whenever that occurs, some form of selling will take place.
Yeah.
Now, we've made lectures of this to the Practicing Law Institute, to we have optometrists who sell over the phone. They sell special classes over the phone. And we, in my field of learning and understanding, here's the commonality. You're dealing with people. and you're dealing with homeowners who hear it all the time. We'll give you a free estimate. Everybody gives free estimates. Don't tell them that. Tell them we'll take a look at what you'd like to have done and what you need to have done.
Hmm.
And if we can do what you would like to have done and need to have done, we'll give you an accurate written proposal on what your investment would be. Then if you go online and listen to me do that over and over again, you can copy that.
You get better at it.
And the final thing is, before you leave the house, you use something called a doorknob. Or a doorknob close is the last thing you say before you leave. And you go online and look at it. And it's about 3 minutes long. And it'll show you if you say it after every time you don't get it, you'll stop calling the people price gougers or price tire kickers or whatever that is. Because
doorknob close, if they search Dave Yoho doorknob close.
if you look at it on, I think it's on YouTube. You look it up on YouTube. I have to look over at my son Brad to get approval to say that because I don't know where it is. But that's where it is. If you look me up on YouTube, Dave Yoho YouTube, and you'll see among other things on there, you'll see trying to buy a car or the power of affirmation. Now you got to be a student. I'm putting it all out there. You choose to look at it. You don't look at the correct language to use when closing a sale. Now, probably 500,000 people have viewed this without paying me any money for it. But the whole idea is that there's a science to all of these things.
Yeah.
It isn't a game. And people think of selling as some sort of a game, and only certain people can do it. We invented a process to examine people. It's an algorithm which is devoted to a DISC, the DISC. Many of these people have taken a profile of that nature. And we own our own algorithm. I spent $185,000 developing it. We can tell with an 8 or 9 minute input from anyone what behavior we can expect from them. Normally, under stress or pressure, or what they're doing to mask their behavior. You can go online and find out about that. And all these little things, we give them away for not some they're minor costs, but the majority of them are free.
Excellent.
But
Excellent.
Here's the problem, though, Kyle.
Please.
I can tell from your talking that I'm preaching to the choir because you probably do these things yourself on a regular basis. And then you say, well, why didn't the people do this? 3 fundamental rules here. Number 1, you cannot know what you do not know. Number 2, you cannot find out what you do not know until you can say, I do not know. And number 3, if you find out and you don't use it, it's just the same as not knowing. Now that's fundamentals. I make that pretty simple. When people hear the word psychology, manipulation, no. Now, this is the fundamental exchange of information between 1 or 2 people.
And it's the difference between being an amateur and a pro. You know, something that I just feel like more business owners, more salespeople need to take the same approach that a world-class athlete takes. They practice, they hone, they challenge themselves. And I think a lot of times we just get complacent. I'm a pretty good salesperson. Don't get complacent. Be excellent. You know, and yes, it is we're similar in that it's very frustrating to me for people to listen to it, to hear a good idea, and then just do nothing with it. You know, we need you guys already have, anybody listening to this, you guys already have enough ideas. There's ideas out, you know, out the door. You know, Dave's talking about all these free resources. I've got free resources out there. One, sometimes it is good to invest some money in some training, because when you invest some money in some training, you take it more serious. But there's an abundance of free resources, and you got to fire yourself up to want to get better and want to improve. Dave, I wanted to ask you one more question, and then we'll kind of wrap up with something. In one of the most influential motivational speakers, there's the NSA Hall of Fame. If I were to say, you know, Dave, give us one of your favorite kind of motivational topics or motivational quick stories or something in that realm to kind of fire the troops up a little bit here. What comes to mind for that?
Okay, well, I did tell you, you can go, when you go online, go on YouTube and look for trying to buy a car. And what you will see is a speech I made to about 3,500 executives of AT&T. And it's not about car. I use the car as symbolism
Mhm.
trying to buy this car, but you'll see my style. My favorite theme or expression in which that speech was based on is something called How to Have a Great Year Every Year. And the subtitle is the EPOD, EPOD resolution. EPOD, energy, persuasion, optimism, discipline, the four components of behavior that are usually encompassed in the behavior that is used by successful people.
Mm.
Energy, persuasion, optimism, and discipline. Energy, how much energy do you bring to what you do? Now I'm looking out at you, and I'm looking at you through a special camera, and I'm mic'd up with sophisticated engineering equipment. That's not what makes you want to hear me. I devote my life to energy. Energy. I'm 92 years of age. I want you to look at that and say, do you know anyone 92 years of age? It can be you. Energy is something you manufacture from the time you get up in the morning. You look in the mirror, you don't like what you see, you don't like what you're doing, you don't like what happened to you yesterday, last week, your father, your mother, your in-laws. And if you allow that to permeate your mind, that will take your energy away. 5 minutes of sustained negativity. Stop listening to the news. It's usually not true. Now, persuasion is not to talk better, it's to listen better. And the interchange of communication is based on a theory I have. Why can't you hear what I'm saying? It's nothing to do with your listening, has to do with my saying. Optimism. Every day you get up in the morning, you want to, here, if you have a backlog, you have to say every day, here is my backlog, here is my goal. Every day I will work towards reducing that goal and then do the things that can reduce it. And I've given you a few to think about. Now, the last thing is discipline. I have no control of what your discipline is. I will have to tell you that I lead a life that goes on beyond this tie and shirt, and you got you called my fancy clothes. and the reason I have on fancy clothes is an appreciation of you, the listener. I go to church. I've never been in church without a tie because I have reverence to whose house I'm in, and my reverence is to you the same way. You're my audience, and you're entitled to see me and hear me at my best. I won't drink milk. I don't drink milk anyhow. I drink something called walnut milk, but it isn't really milk, or I eat yogurt. But I don't eat them in the morning. I don't eat them in the morning when I'm going to do this work because it clouds my talking apparatus. And that's it. If you were to look at the speeches that I do throughout the world, there's one called The Burring Minister. We have it online. You watch it, The Burring Minister, and the people came to hear a speech on bad practices. And the bad practices was a minister, that's me, coming out as a minister, telling you about a guy who we call the old-time presenter and why he passed away. And that there's room now for personal growth. Because I have to appreciate every opportunity I get to talk to people, to give them something that is replicable, something that they can hinge on, something that they can look up. And that's what life is about. And listen, the thing we share, Kyle, is life is a series of new beginnings and new learning experiences. Because every time we meet one of you people, I do a presentation that's some big seminar, and the people come up and they want to ask a question and whatnot. And I feel so enthralled that they will trust me with the question that they're asking me. I can't get my salespeople to do what I ask them to do. I can't make a profit on every one of my transactions. And if we go back and say, tell me your pricing formula, it's probably wrong, because most people get their pricing formula from somebody who wrote a book on pricing formulas. But there's some academics involved, and it changes a lot when you understand the dynamics of the price that gives you a profit on every transaction, which also includes how do you get the work done without paying so much that you obviate all of your profit. And but the common tag, energy, persuasion, optimism, discipline.
Love it.
These are four things. Everybody's got them. It depends how you use them.
You're inspiring me, Dave. I enjoyed our whole talk, but especially that last 5 or 6 minutes there. So much I think of improving in business and life is getting motivated, is hearing something and saying, you know what, I'm sick and tired of the way it's been going, and I'm going to do something about it. And I think through this conversation, there's a lot of different areas and a lot of different topics. And what's always fun about people listening to content like this is they might be motivated in the area of, they might have heard your little spiel about church and say, you know what, I haven't been to church in a while. Who knows the value? Get to church, people, by the way. Who knows the value that somebody's getting from this, but I got value from it. I know the people listening got value from it. And Dave, I appreciate your time. If people want to look you up, I know we mentioned the YouTube, but how else can they get a hold of you?
The easiest thing is, and maybe you'll post this.
Sure.
Is it's Dave, DAVEYOHO, my last name, like it spells Santa Claus, YOHO, Associates. You can abbreviate it. We are in Fairfax, Virginia. Our email, pretty simple, is dave@daveyoho.com.
Bingo.
And if you go on YouTube, you look up Dave Yoho, and you'll see different references. But go to YouTube and get Dave Yoho, and then look for the different things we talked about, the sales ideas that come along with the EPOD, Energy, Persuasion, Optimism, and Discipline. The book, I wrote a best-selling book called How to Have a Great Year Every Year. Now, I've done a number of books, and 2 of them became bestsellers. That doesn't mean people read it. And that's the thing. That's what you and I share, the same thing. Why is it? Somebody will call you and say, Kyle, I can't tell you how much you helped me. And I can't tell you, and I'm sure you get those kind of things, or you wouldn't be in business 11 years. And then suppose you looked at that guy and said, hey, I give the same advice to everybody. You happen to take it. And I appreciate you telling me about it. But people hear advice and they don't want to own it. So I rest my case. It has been a pleasure being on today. And it is a little difficult to get a hold of me personally, but if you call our office or write our office or go on or email us in any one of those things, somebody will get back to you. And if you're having something, we produce white papers. We have a blog that takes them off in all different directions, and we don't charge anything for those.
Excellent.
Kyle, I thank you for taking the time to work with us and to get our message out across to these fine people.
Indeed. Likewise. Appreciate your time very much. Good to meet you, and we'll have to do it again sometime.